Jak Hutchcraft.
Andy Wrintmore.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I've never been better. I'm in Froome.
We're in Froome. Welcome to Froome.
Thank you. I do feel most welcome.
Good.
I feel like it's lived up to my expectations, which were that it's welcoming, it's creative, and it's in the countryside, right?
Yeah, the countryside. It's in the countryside.
It's in the countryside,
mate. It's great. I love this place so much, and I'm so big love to Tom McEwen. I'm so glad that we went to Tom's today to and that ring he's made. Did you see it?
I didn't get to see it. No,
it's a silver ring, and it's kind of I'm not sure how to describe it, but it's kind of textured. Yeah, it's kind of like bumpy and wavy, but it's not jagged. It's very smooth and stuff. And we're going to look at it soon and see whether we're going to get it like rough or smooth or whatever.
Is that mayoral?
Mayoral. It won't be an official piece of jewelry, but I think he did it because he's always been a big supporter of mine, and I think he's so excited by the new position. He was like, "I'll make a new ring."
Nice. That's a good compliment.
It's great. Like there are a few people around that Tom's made bits for, and it's always because he really loves what they're doing, and it's a gift, and it's like, here's something I can do really well, and I'm going to give it to you, and it's all. I think it's a big honor, really, because Tom's like, he's a legend. I
think so too. Yeah. Anything. Yeah, it's like creating a piece of art for you.
Yeah,
because that's what it is.
It's really quite loving, isn't it?
Definitely.
So I could have stayed there all day, really, drinking. It was really great.
Yeah, it was great to see his studio. He's a goldsmith, right? For people that. Well, actually, people who have listened to the podcast probably know him because he was on it,
and he's going to be on again.
Oh,
we've just confirmed him for a really special little scenario.
Oh yes, I've heard about that.
Yeah, it's really a good one. So you've come from London to Froome.
Yeah,
we'll bring people in. You're a freelance journalist. Mm-hmm. You play in Waco. Any other things? Any other titles you want me to? Fashion icon, yeah, that's on there definitely.
North look at that leather waistcoat,
mate.
You have to be fairly cocksure, confident to wear a leather waistcoat these days.
You sent me the picture of you on the train with your tickets, and I was going to wear my leather cut, and I was like, I can't wear my leather cut though.
We look like we're the Warriors or something. Get our name.
But I was thinking of like lame Sons of Anarchy, but like the Warriors, man. Warriors.
Okay, so I'm a journalist and I'm a musician, and they do sometimes overlap because I write about music, and I get quite an interesting perspective. Like I don't just write about music; I write about all, like culture and subculture and anything that takes my fancy, really. But I get quite a unique perspective in that, like, I'm in a band and then I write about bands, and you kind of see how the other side works a little bit. Yeah. And the music press is fucking shite. Basically, it's tough, man. It's like
in what way is it shite? Like,
well, it's funny for me because I receive loads of PR emails, for example. You know, hot new thing, best new band, hotly tipped for 2021, and all this, and I hate to say it, but I don't read them all or take them very seriously.
Yeah.
And then I'm on the other side of it in a band, sending out emails to the journalists, going like, "Yo, check us out," you know. And it's just like, wow, how do you stand out from from the waterfall of emails that people get every day? And so I see that I think the system's a bit broken, or maybe it's given me a different perspective on how to cultivate a fan base in a band. Just gigging, just getting out there and speaking to people at gigs and doing decent merch and selling it for an affordable price and just making music that you're passionate about, and kind of not relying on the music press or radio, because I think it's it can be sometimes a bit of a bit of nepotism in there. People know each other and then they help each other out. And unfortunately, I've played a part in that sometimes as well. You know, I know a band because I've seen them play live and I like them personally. I've met them, and then I'll write a thing about them. Unfortunately, it's fucked up, but it works like that sometimes.
But if they're worthy of, I know what you're saying, but if they're worthy of the article or the exposure. It's not that you've got a friend and you really love him and he's great and he's shit and you're like, I'm still going to do it for you anyway. There's still some integrity in what you're doing. You know, you're still writing about something because you believe in it. And I guess part of it is that, you know, you like these people and they're your friends because you believed in it and you got involved. Exactly.
It's kind of like a chicken or egg kind of situation. You don't know. You're like, oh, good guys, good band. Let's do something. But really, what I'm really interested in journalism is talking about, in my journalism, is talking about things that are, speaking to people and giving them a voice where they otherwise don't always have one on a bigger platform. And that could be marginalised people of some sort or misunderstood people, I guess, or sometimes quite derided people.
Right.
That are kind of not seen always, or are seen in a certain way. And I'm kind of looking at, from a compassionate point of view, there's a human being there, you know, let's see them. So I've written about religious groups that have been described as cults before, for example.
Okay, who? Because your band's called Waco. Is that anything to do with the Waco
siege?
Thing?
Yeah, and the Waco
and the cults and stuff. Okay.
It is, and that was. I mean, I guess it's quite a striking name.
Yeah.
But it's
got connotations.
yeah, of course. And that was that. If people don't know what that was, it was a strange clashing of the modern world and kind of the spiritual world. Like the ATF, who were part of the FBI, they were a division of the FBI. They went head to head with a religious cult called the Branch Davidians, and they had a shootout in Waco, Texas. They had a shootout instead of them closing the commune and everyone leaving peacefully. It was like, no, we're packing heat. You know, we've got weapons here. They had a shootout, and then eventually the US government, I guess the FBI, the ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Department, they killed them all.
Right.
Apart from I think like 9
normally
people
cults
survived.
kill themselves.
They do sometimes.
Well, not
they
normally.
they implode and they take their own life. But these guys were killed, and I think that's pretty twisted. You know, I believe in freedom of belief, obviously. Yeah. You know, like that's a pretty basic.
See, I assumed that they were killed because they
resisted.
Well, I don't know much about it, but I assumed that they were being led by some sort of megalomaniac, which is what all cults seem to be led by.
Yeah.
And that they were a bit like the Manson family, maybe, like possibly they were up to no good, or they were planning things and they were a threat to people. But I didn't know that I didn't know that this happened just basically because they were.
Well, to be honest, you've tapped into something that I guess. They had a lot of weapons, and they were led by a megalomaniac, a guy called David Koresh.
Okay.
That's what they call the Branch Davidians, and they were a subsect of the of Christianity, really. I mean, like they were a spin-off, you know, and
we're a spin-off,
you know, right? And then, so I guess they could have been perceived as a threat. Right. I mean, in America, a lot of people are perceived as threats, but they have a lot of weapons, and the guy David Koresh was selling weapons, which sounds quite triggering, you know, no pun intended. Right. But you can sell weapons in America.
Right.
You know, you can sell handguns if you want. So I think that he had a lot of weapons, and that was his.
That was his gig, was it?
That was his gig, selling weapons. Right. As far as I know, do you know what? I haven't read about it for a long time. And they, and then the FBI went in to shut them down because they were living outside of the law. Right. I guess they were living their own way in a commune, off-grid kind of thing. And then the world government sometimes like to control what people do, right?
Yeah.
They want people to live inside of a framework. And these guys didn't fit in that way. And they weren't perfect. And the guy might have been a bit of a wrong un.
Yeah.
You know, he had loads of girlfriends and this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they went in with heavy hands, and they were met with heavy hands because these religious devotees were like, nah, mate, like you're not taking this from us. And so they had a shootout. So we're called Waco. I guess it's quite a striking name, but I think it's quite important to read about that kind of thing because you think, you know, what the powers that be are meant to protect us. Well, hold on, they fucking killed like over 100 people in Waco, Texas.
Yeah, it's a massacre.
It's a massacre,
I guess. Yeah,
it is. Yeah. And in that way, I think it's good to question our governments and good to question to bite the hand that feeds, so to speak. Right. Even just in our thoughts, you know, to go like, oh, hold on, maybe things aren't what they seem. And if you live in the UK and you've seen the way the Conservative government have handled the pandemic and things like that, it's not easy to think, holy shit, we're being lied to a bit. And this, I'm not even like, I'm a tamer on the tamer end of conspiracy theorists. Right.
Yeah.
But that's not
you
how to see.
accept that maybe there's something in the conspiracy, but it's not always, you know, you don't buy the whole thing.
Exactly. Not everything is.
Right.
I think this is where I think a lot of conspiracy theorists or big voices in that world, I think they they give themselves illegitimacy by believing everything and working it into their theory.
Right.
Sometimes things just happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like so David Icke, for example,
yeah,
the pandemic hit, he's been saying stuff for years about, you know, the royal family, reptilians and all this kind of stuff. And then sometimes things happen and they just happen. It's not all part of the same plan.
Yeah.
But I guess when you're making money from it or your whole character is based on it, then it works well for you if it's all part of the same big plan. Whereas I'm more of a question everything guy, even the conspiracy theories.
Right.
Come on, like how can you say question everything but go, oh, remember that thing they said? Yeah, I'm just going to take it on face value.
Yeah.
You know, that YouTuber told me something. I'm just going to believe it and not do any of my own research. So I'm all for questioning things, everything.
Right. Do you believe David Icke? Do you believe what he says? Because I always wonder with like Alex Jones as well. It's like, you know, at some point he realised, hang on a minute, there's people, you know, there's money.
People are digging this.
You know, and I'm selling these weird little products that you like, little droplets you put in your water to make it safe because I've told them that put in fluoride or something in it. You know what I mean? All these supplements from the globalists.
Freaking frogs gay.
Yeah, and all that crap, right? And it's like, I wonder if at some point he's gone, oh, you know what? This is actually good for me. This is a character now. Like, I wonder if David Icke, like the reptilian thing, is kind of just fun, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Do you know?
I wouldn't like to believe that. That would be horrible to believe that's to have a worldview where you think that's the truth.
Well, do you know? I have thought about this a lot because you think like, you know, when something becomes. When the character almost becomes bigger than you and bigger than your theories and it's almost like a parody of itself. Yeah. But then like David Icke, for example, I heard an interesting theory that, so you know how he kind of came out as like an alternative thinker, I guess. He was on Terry Wogan's show, and he was like, because he's a football player, right? He's a goalkeeper.
Was he?
He was goalkeeper.
I didn't know. I knew he was something, and then he
switched it up.
And then he switched it up and was like kind of strange.
Yeah.
And I assumed I thought he was a regular journalist, and he fell from grace, and then he just went all wacky. But
I think he was a footballer.
Okay.
Oh God, maybe I'm wrong, but anyway, he said, "I'm Jesus Christ," which he doesn't say anymore. He said, "I am the Son of God." He said,
he's lost me already at that point.
On Terry Wogan, he said that, and it was so bombastic and outrageous that everyone was like, "Oh my God, he's lost it," and it made for good TV. And you can see that he's a little bit. I thought that he looked a bit troubled.
Yeah,
you know, you're looking in his eye, you're thinking, "Is everything okay? Is he having a bit of a nervous breakdown?"
Yeah,
and then. He has a lot of other theories that kind of came out after that and over the years that are not, well, for me, not that far out.
Yeah.
So there's a theory that that maybe he said these really outrageous things to get him on the map, and then when you have all eyes on you, then you can start saying, "Oh no, actually, we're being controlled by fear, by advertising, by like we're all these things that are actually much more within the realms of." Within believable territory.
Right.
But by saying, I am the Son of God, that's what he says that. I am Jesus Christ. Yeah. And then he never said it again ever in his career. He's never said that since.
Like John Lennon.
So, yeah.
Jesus.
So maybe the reptilian thing's quite similar. He does mention that quite a bit, but it's like, come for the reptilians, stay for the real theories. That's an idea that I've heard that maybe it's like,
I get what you're saying. Yeah,
there's actually there's a kernel of truth in other things that he says, but he's like, I need to say something outrageous to get people listening.
Right, I see what you're saying.
It's a pretty bold tactic, so maybe it's wrong.
It's a big gamble, isn't it?
But he also says things like, Like, I think the problem is when you get bigger, like him and Alex Jones are good examples. John Ronson, the writer, he described David Icke in such a way, and it always sticks with me. He said, he's the sort of person that anything you tell him, he'll believe and work it into his narrative.
Right.
And that, I think, is unwise because that's like, I said, oh, by the way, the pandemic's fake. It's all made up. He'd go, okay, cool, yeah, that actually works for my reptilian theory. Right. That works for my theory that the moon isn't real. Yeah. And you think, like, sometimes you'd actually you'd have more credence if you were like, no, hold on, that's bullshit. A volcano actually did erupt, or, an earthquake actually did happen. It's not all some part of some Fruminati kind of thing.
Fruminati. I'm in that.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's what that ring was for earlier.
Oh, of course, yeah, the Fruminati ring.
My Fruminati ring.
Well, I don't know, what do you think about all that kind of thing? Do you think I think people are just trying to profiteer off followers, or what?
I've believed some conspiracy theories, and it's
sometimes they turn out to be true.
I mean, if you watch a lot of like Michael Moore stuff, it's incredibly biased filmmaking. You get to the end of it and you go, "That's it, I believe it." Yeah, and and I don't always find that he presents the other side. So, and I think a lot of conspiracies are like that. And I think I was having a chat with someone years and years ago, actually, Will Angelero, who's been on the podcast before. And when I was in school, I messaged him something about the Mothman. I was like, "Oh, you heard about the Mothman? This is such a cool thing. It's an interesting piece of fiction, isn't it?" Yeah. And he
I don't know anything about the Mothman.
Oh, well, it's a big owl-like man who like appears.
It's like a Jersey Devil kind of folklore.
Yeah, something like that. I can't quite remember now. It's been so many years since but there was a film made about it. And there's a part of America where people go and visit, and there's like a couple of spots where apparently he was seen, and it's kind of a bit of a touristy thing, and it brings a bit of money into the small town.
Come get your selfies with the Mothman.
It's an interesting thing. But he said to me that, the people who really believe in conspiracies are the ones that are not satisfied with the way that the world is, and they want more.
That's interesting.
And I thought, that's very, very interesting.
Well, I'm not satisfied with the way the world works.
And I said, wouldn't it be great if
stuff is so unfair and unjust?
Yeah, but I think what we mean is our reality.
Oh, sorry,
it's like, I was like, wouldn't it be great if we found a Bigfoot? If we actually found a Bigfoot, it'd be great. And why do I think that would be great?
I don't know why.
Because it would be out of the ordinary, wouldn't it? It'd be extraordinary.
The ordinary life isn't that interesting.
And interesting. And I think there are a lot of people that want to believe these things because I think they've grown up thinking that the world is something it isn't. And maybe there's a part of that childhood sort of like, anything can happen. We grew up watching Disney stuff and Star Wars and whatever, and you feel like, and then people say to you, when you're older, you can be anything you want if you work at it and everything. And I think there's some sort of magical worldview, or when you're young and innocent, that you do think that everything's kind of wondrous and you don't know how anything works. And I think maybe there's a part. I'm not saying that there's a part of that stops developing, and then but I think that there's something in that where
you want to enchant the world a bit.
Yeah, I think
re-enchant the world.
Yeah, because becoming an adult and losing that innocence, it kind of sucks.
Things are just exactly as you see it,
and it can be very boring.
There are no mysteries anymore. Yeah. It's not a very nice.
And I think part of the conspiracy stuff, especially stuff like Bigfoot, Mothman, and lizards and things, maybe it's just part of your child that's you've managed to sort of save.
That's
part of your inner child. But then also, we've seen this with the pandemic, is when people feel that they've lost control over their lives.
Yeah, not a nice feeling.
Not a nice feeling. They are more likely to believe conspiracy theories because it gives them a sense of order, that they know what's going on. It's something. It's something to fit into when everything's fucking wild and they don't know what's going on in lockdowns and this,
world order.
Right? If there's a narrative comes along that helps them make sense of it and gives them a sense of control over how they're experiencing their worldview.
Yeah.
I think that's why in the last year conspiracy theories have been wild.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, because it's a big thing to comprehend. I kind of agree, because sometimes things are like. It kind of works in a weird way with religious or spiritual beliefs. Sometimes there are some parallels to be drawn, because chaos if you're an atheist and you believe that everything we see is essentially chaos. It's random and it's chaos.
Yeah.
You could get hit by a car. You could just drop dead at any point. Like these really bad and unjust and unfair things happen, and they're very hard to explain. So you think like, well, it's much easier to be like, oh, it's all part of a conspiracy against me. Or it's like, oh, it's part of God's plan. There's a reason this is happening. Because like a lack of reason or lack of rhyme or reason for something, it's hard to comprehend, because I guess our whole society is structured around
because you can't control it.
You can't control it. Yeah,
because,
it's not like, you might get cancer tomorrow. You might just pass away. Oh, brilliant. You know what I mean? Like why? There is no answer to that.
Exactly.
That's harder to comprehend than
it's scary.
Yeah. Or same as afterlife. Oh, nothing happens afterwards.
Right.
Oh, great. What, you expect me to just live my life and just know that nothing, we just become worm food afterwards?
Right.
It's like, fuck you, man. I'd rather believe something cool happens. But I will say with conspiracy theorists and the whole rhetoric around it, I do think, that it gets a bit tribalistic, where it's like, oh, if you believe, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you're an absolute nut job who believes the Queen's a lizard and all this. You think, dude, sometimes conspiracy theories are true. They just are. I understand a broken clock is right twice a day. I understand that analogy, but also, like, if I told you 10 years ago that I thought the NSA were spying on our text messages or looking at our emails. Like, people were saying that before Edward Snowden leaked it.
Yeah.
Like, people were saying that, and they sounded like nutters at the pub who, like, were paranoid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it came out, it's true. It's like, I mean, you can't just, and also the government does lie, and it's proven to have lied. And like,
yeah, but there's a rationale for that as well. At least you can understand why they would do it.
Yeah, it's kind of self-protection to be like questioning things. And you're like, we've been lied to loads of times. Are you kidding me? Like, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
And then, so I think with the pandemic, we're in a very unique situation, and it's the government's fault, really, and even big pharma and mainstream medicine, in a way where people have been lied to a lot. And in America, for example, big pharma profits off people's illness, and they get them addicted to painkillers and drugs for their whole life, and they've been lied to over and over again. And then when it's like The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Then when something serious comes along, people distrusting of the government, and they think, oh, you just want us to wear masks because you want to control us. Because there's so many other examples throughout history where they have lied to us. So the responsibility doesn't just lie with people and the people profiteering from it, but to the governments and the bigger corporations and big pharma and all these things that have lied to us. It's like, hold on, you can't lie to us and then go, by the way, this thing's true, though.
Yeah.
It's confusing. So they've created this maelstrom in which we live in which these conspiracy theorists and these anti-vaxxers and all this kind of thing, they can flourish in a world full of disarray. And that's been created by disinformation campaigns, by advertising, misleading information from our government, and all this kind of shit. They've created it. So I think that the responsibility does lie with people and their own judgment, but also, fuck you, you know what I mean? Like, you've lied to me so many times. Why should I now trust you? That you've got my best interests at heart. Why would I trust you? Boris fucking Johnson.
I made the mistake of saying anti-vaxxers, right?
Yeah.
Now I put up something saying, oh, if you're an anti-vaxxer, put something on Instagram saying, like, oh, I don't take you seriously, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, right.
And actually, that was wrong of me to do, because what I created in that post was a separation,
a division,
a division of one or the other, right?
Yeah.
And someone, I'm not going to say who it was, because I don't think they would want me to name them, not name and shame, but name them. But it's probably someone we know, a mutual friend, and they messaged me and they were saying, oh, I kind of resent this anti-vax thing because it has connotations with paranoia and rubbish conspiracy theories and some of the other stuff that's, there's a lot of people I know during the pandemic that would share the anti-vax type conspiracies, but then they would also share the lizard people thing. Yeah. And it's kind of what you were saying earlier, where it's like, well, you've got no credibility with me now.
Yes, yeah.
I'm now not listening to you because I think you're batshit.
Yeah, yeah.
But this person had a very kind of moderate, it's somewhere in the middle of like, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. Mm-hmm. I'm a skeptic, and I'm looking into this, and I'm doing this and that.
Yeah.
And I've read this thing, and I'm reading these papers and everything, blah blah. And I'm doing my own research and all that stuff, and actually, I felt that their counter, their rebuttal to what I said was actually very measured and thought out, and very quite sensible, really. Yeah. And then I kind of felt like, like I've created this division here by saying it's one or the other, when really it is a spectrum, isn't it? And it's got so much nuance to it, where it's like you may be skeptical, you may not want the vaccine, but it doesn't make you an anti-vaxxer.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Like I've noticed this. It's like it's your health at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's like the only thing you have, the only thing you truly own is your body and your health, right?
Yeah.
And the only thing you really have is time on this earth. And that's why you get a lot of parents that entertain anti-vax ideas, because it's their kid, it's your baby. Like in America, they have 13 vaccines, like mandatory vaccines, 13.
Right.
In the UK, what do we have? Like 2.
I don't know, but not many.
So think about that. Like
I don't think I've ever had 13 injections of anything.
Yeah. So even that, it's like, I'm not saying don't get vaccinated, but I'm saying if you've had a beautiful baby boy, baby girl, you want the best for them. And then you think, hold on, this is the pharmaceutical company that got me hooked to fucking Xanax all these years because they couldn't be asked to, or they didn't know how to solve my, I don't know, PTSD or something like that. So they just pumped me full of drugs. So I'm a slave to their system, and I'm paying them money all these years. That's the same company that I want them to inject my newborn baby. You can understand the worries. That's all I'm saying. You can like it. And so with this government, with these dodgy contracts they've given to their mates, like Dyson, nepotism, like them giving Dyson like a contract to make breathing apparatus, and they'd never done it before, but they're like Tory donors, like cronyism, I guess that's what they call it.
Right.
Like that's just fact. So why you know what I mean? Like why would they then? Like, I've had my vaccine, by the way.
Right. I need to book mine. I'm going to go on record. I'm going to have mine. Yeah.
I've had my first dose, but you know what I mean? Like you do think like, well, hold on. Like the powers that be are telling us one thing, and they've got their mates making breathing apparatus for people. Like how it's good to be. I think it's healthy to be a bit skeptical sometimes, and it's totally understandable. And I don't like this vax thing, conspiracy theorist, non-conspiracy theorist. It's like, how many people now believe that Lee Harvey Oswald killed Kennedy by himself?
Right.
It's pretty common that people think, no, there was more than one gunman. Yeah. Like, as far as I'm concerned, people question that JFK shooting all the time. He was shot like 9 times by loads of different angles. It's almost beyond conspiracy theory. It's just like something they teach in politics class. I learned about it in my politics at college. Right. They showed me a video of the JFK film by Oliver Stone. So therefore...
Is that Leon? No,
it's called JFK.
Oh, okay.
It's a great film, and it's definitely erring on the side of there was more than one gunman, and maybe the CIA set it up. But you think like, hold on, like, yeah, I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say? Like sometimes
things become normalized.
Sometimes it's absolutely healthy to question things.
Yeah.
Like the government are fucking crooks, man. Come on, are you kidding me? Like,
yeah,
even people who are not interested think they're crooks and think they're money-making scammers. People who didn't vote in the last election, I don't vote because they're all, they're all the same or whatever. That's a rebellious standpoint.
Yeah, I went to
standpoint.
When you said about crooks. I went to a school recently for kids with autism and Asperger's and stuff like that, extra like additional needs. As the mayor, so I had my chains on and strolling around. I opened up their
I love that,
their new playground. It was really sick. And as I was walking through the hallway, one kid said, "Are you the mayor?" And I said, "Yeah, that's right." And he said, "You don't look like the mayor. You look like a gangster." And I was like, and I kind of just smiled, and I was like, this dude like knows, like, not that I'm saying I'm a gangster, but typically the line between politician and gangster is a very blurry one, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll make you an offer you can refuse.
Right? And he was like 9. He's like, you look like a gangster, and I was like thinking like, this kid is smart.
Yeah,
he knows something.
That's like programming.
Right.
Politicians, mayors look like this. You know, they're this kind of person. They're this kind of age.
Yeah.
From a very young age, or people with different abilities can spot that.
Yeah.
You know, like, you don't look like the mayor.
Yeah.
People have been programmed to believe that. That's why you don't see as many people of colour in Parliament, and you don't see, you know, as many. You see more women now, but, you know, for a long time it was just white men, because people think that that's who should be in that position.
Yeah.
From when we're very young.
It's crazy.
It's deep, man.
And
you don't look like a mayor.
No,
But that's what makes you a good
gangster.
mayor.
And I was going to ask you as well, you know, your job as a journalist is to dive in behind the scenes, to get the facts, figure out what's going on. Mm-hmm. And often you will find that things are not as they seem. So I was going to ask whether you think that journalists, or maybe hardened, experienced journalists, may be more susceptible to conspiracy theories and stuff, because they've seen a lot of the time that actually they've had to go hunting for the truth,
And stuff is corrupt, or stuff is secret. And
so do you think there's a paranoia that comes to you all?
well, do you know what? I've not really thought about that, but I do think that I do think if anyone's like me, I don't really have many journalist mates, but you realise that things are much more complex than you think.
Right.
Or if you're a good journalist, if you're a good journalist, in my opinion, you're right. You'll often uncover that the story's way more complicated. That things aren't as polarized as you think they are.
Right.
Good and bad.
It's
evil.
not black and white. Yeah.
Not at all. Like so. I think you get used to being like looking at both arguments or both sides of the coin and going like, maybe, have you thought about it from the other point of view? Or, the reason people believe this is because of this. I guess it's a bit sociological. Like, like a good example is, I've been writing this piece about Stonehenge.
Right.
And about there's a proposed road tunnel that's going to be built nearby.
Yeah. Don't they want to go under it?
They don't want to go under Stonehenge.
Is that they want to go under it?
So that's interesting that you just said that.
I see, because that's what I've heard. I was like, that's nuts, but all right.
Yeah, that is nuts. That would be nuts.
Yeah.
If that was true.
Okay.
But it's not true.
Interesting. Right.
So this is one of these things where I've approached it because I'm
disinformation.
It's kind of disinformation, and it's like the emotional voices shout the loudest.
Right.
And the emotional voices on this one, like protect Stonehenge, and I'm all for that. Like I go to the winter solstices. I believe that it should be protected. It's a sacred site.
Yeah.
But the more research I did into it, the more I was like, this is well complicated, and we're not getting the whole picture from either side, actually.
Okay, interesting.
So from either side, so it's not going to be harmless, and it's not going to be better for the environment if they build this tunnel.
Right.
Some aspects of it might be better for the environment, or at least seem to be.
Now, what's the point of the tunnel? To funnel traffic more efficiently? To protect the stones from like carbon and shit in the air? Or what is the...
So I'll try not to go too deep. But there's the A303, which passes by Stonehenge. Have you been there before?
Oh,
So you know
forever.
You know that road?
Yeah.
It's a single lane road.
Yeah.
And it's always traffic there, right? In my experience, there's always traffic there.
Oh, it's always packed.
It's always packed, right?
Yeah.
That's because the A303 is wider. It's a double carriageway, either side of Stonehenge, either side. So it's a double carriageway, and then it narrows to a skinny road.
Yeah.
So obviously that
bottlenecks.
Bottlenecks it. And then because they couldn't get the permission to widen the road near Stonehenge because it's a bit of an eyesore, a big road there. So, but now the eyesore is there's a road there and it's got loads of traffic on it.
Right.
That road's been there since the 1700s. It's not a new road.
Right.
Okay, so it's always been there.
Okay.
Well, not always, but it's been there for a few hundred years. Stonehenge is like 5,000 years old, so it hasn't been there since the beginning.
That's relatively new, actually, really, isn't it? When you think about it.
Stonehenge.
5,000 years. Relatively.
It is relatively new. It is, if Jesus were alive now, Stonehenge would be older to him than he is to us. So it's still pretty old.
Yeah.
So 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 anyway, so this road, and a lot of people do rat running through these these little villages like Shrewton. A lot of people leave the road because they want to take a shortcut.
Yeah.
That makes the villages really
congested.
Yeah. So these are the arguments for the road tunnel. The road tunnel will be further away than that road. That road will just be a footpath.
Right.
That'll be not a road anymore. It'll be further away, further south, and it'll be underground, obviously, because it's a tunnel.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Sounds like a good idea, right? On paper. So the reason it's so complicated is because there's so many elements to it, but they want to increase they want to make it quicker to get to that side of the country. You know what I mean? Because the bottleneck slows everyone down. It's not an ideal road to travel on. Yeah, all this kind of thing. And so they want to increase traffic for economic reasons.
Right.
And they want to reduce the rat running, so that's another reason. And they're saying it's not a good idea to have all this congested road right next to Stonehenge because it's an eyesore, but also all the cars moving very slowly is actually bad for the environment. So these are all Highways England. That's their point of view. That's why they're doing it. But on the flip side of that, the anti-tunnel people are now campaigning indirectly on behalf of that weird skinny road that's always full because they're like, we don't need the tunnel. It's like, what? Do you want the skinny road that's always packed? Right. So they're fighting for that accidentally because they don't want the underground tunnel to be built because the underground tunnel will be a lot of carbon emissions and it will actually. They say it will. It won't adhere to the Paris Treaty, which is to do with carbon emissions.
Right.
So just the building of it is not worth it. You know what I mean?
Okay. Right.
And also the amount of money they're going to spend on it is billions and billions of pounds. You think we're just about to hit the worst recession. Some economists have said we're going to hit the worst recession in years. The NHS is underfunded. Do we really need to be investing billions into this road scheme?
Right.
I'd say no. And Grant Shapps, who's the head of transport for the Department of Transport, I think that's his title. But he was told by an independent body that they shouldn't build this tunnel because it'll do damage to the World Heritage Site. So Stonehenge is here, the World Heritage Site is massive around it. And if you dig under it, it's going to disrupt loads of ancient
burials,
whatever is under
vibrations and things. Because they're always digging up foundations of things, aren't they?
Exactly.
Right.
So they said they shouldn't build it, and he ignored them. It's almost like, why hire them in the first place?
At some point, though, we have to move forward, don't we?
Well,
your Saxon foundations are incredible, but they had their time. They've been and gone, and we can't keep everything. But I understand. I do get it.
Well, the interesting thing from an archaeological point of view, I interviewed two really leading archaeologists in their field, and they both work together in digs on Stonehenge, and they both disagree. One thinks the road tunnel should be built. Yeah. The other one thinks it's too disruptive to the World Heritage Site.
Interesting. Right.
And they're friends. They went to university together.
Right.
And they were fascinating to interview because one of them said the process of archaeology is destructive in its nature. You dig it up. You're digging up old shit, and then you're looking at it, and you're examining it, and you're trying to work out...
Digging up old shit. I love that.
So you are by nature, it's destructive. You have to dig it up to look at it and then to work out how old it is and the history of the land and all this kind of thing. The other ones say, and to do that, they have to get university grants and things like that, which are very hard to get and they're underfunded. So this is a road scheme that's going to pay for all the excavation because they're not just going to dig it and put it in the bin. Right. They have a team of archaeologists that are going to dig it up, look at it, and then build the road tunnel. So it's actually really good in one point of view.
Right, they're being responsible.
So in one point of view, it's really good archaeologically because it's like, we get to dig up loads of land and we get to look at what's under there. Okay. And the other side is like, it's a guy called Mike Parker Pearson, who's really anti-road. Right. He's like, they don't actually thoroughly look through all that shit. Only 4% of it will be actually looked at and studied. So
it's almost like lip service.
They're both saying like the opposite thing. One saying, and also quite an interesting thing that Mike Pitt said. This is the other archaeologist. He said the World Heritage Site it's just been made up at some point. Like in the modern era, They've just drawn a line on the map and gone, that's the World Heritage Site. In fact, the World Heritage Site is actually way bigger than that. And it's already got houses on it. It's already got villages and houses built on it. You know, in Neolithic terms, that line on the map means nothing. So he goes, you've already built houses on it. Why don't we just fucking build a road tunnel as well? Because you've just made it up anyway. The actual landscape is ancient and it's way bigger than that. So in the Neolithic times, they didn't just draw a line on the map and go, this is a World Heritage Site. It doesn't make sense. We've made it up. So he's saying, with that in mind, when they built flats nearby for soldiers, which was I think 10 years ago, when they dug up the land to build the flats on, he said they made some of the best discoveries they've ever made because they never had permission to do that and they didn't have the funding to do that.
Right.
So basically, it's complicated. I don't think they should build a road tunnel. I think it's a waste of money. It's a waste of carbon emissions. I think we need bigger roads, create more cars. Everyone I interviewed said that it creates more traffic if you have a wider road. Right. I don't think we should do that. I think less roads. If the lockdown has taught us anything, you don't need to travel so much for work. You can do it from home. All this kind of shit. I don't think we should. But in my research, to go back to your original question, I've realised it's way more more complicated. I spoke to a woman from Shrewton, the little village. She's like, I've been campaigning for a different road for 30 years because outside of my house there's lorries going past in this little village. Yeah. So you think, wow, so whoever wins, someone's going to lose. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or a whole group of people are going to lose out. So it's just one of those things where it's there's a court hearing on the 23rd to the 25th of June, and the anti-road protesters, the Save Stonehenge World Heritage Site, that's what they're called, they've taken them to court to talk about the legality of the decision to build the road tunnel. So maybe it won't actually happen. Right. But what I found out is it's way more complicated and there's a lot more disinformation than you think. So yeah, journalists maybe are more open-minded to conspiracy theories because you're like, hold on, that's not true. I know that's not true because I've done a little bit more digging than your average Facebook user or whatever. So you said, is the road tunnel going to go under the stones? No. Right. It never ever was. It's actually further away from the stones than the road is already.
I see.
So therefore, you're an example of the wrong information getting to people. And I think a lot of it comes down to distrust of these road schemes and the lies in the past and the heavy-handedness that they were in the 90s when they were dragging hippies out of trees. A lot of it comes down to that. But I do think it weakens your argument if you're spreading disinformation, even if it validates or confirms what you believe. Yeah. You can't be saying it's going under the stones, man. That's just wrong. That's just not true. Or they're going to knock down the stones. I found this public service announcement from an American dude on Twitter going, we need to stop, save the stones. They're gonna knock down the stones. This is the travesty. I thought, you've never been to Stonehenge in your life. Where are you getting this information from? Right. You know what I mean? Whereas the people who want the road actually live nearby and see the stones every day, they understand it's way more complex. Right. Anyway, you can tell I've just written an article about it. I can talk all day, man.
So I think it's interesting. I wonder if a journalist who isn't open to a conspiracy theory is worth their salt.
They're quite opinionated journalists, and they're not always open-minded. Strangely, they sometimes, in my experience, they can be like, "I've got an idea of something. I'm going to write an article, find out. I'm going to write an article in a way or report in a way that confirms what I already believe." Right. That drill music makes young people violent, for example, or that illegal raves are to blame for the spread of COVID. That's another thing that you can, if you look really hard, you can make a case for it because you can connect anything. I wrote a thing about illegal raves as well, and that was the Sun on Sunday. Obviously, the Sun on Sunday. They did an investigation where they linked a smattering of illegal raves, about 100 or 200 people each, to the spread of COVID. Right. So you're like, oh, are you kidding me? It's not that we locked down too late. It's not that the government have been absolutely shite at spreading awareness, and it's illegal raves. Is that to blame? Right. I don't think it is, but you can connect any dots you want. So sometimes journalists they have an idea in mind and they
see what they want to see.
They'll see what they want to see. Or they omit information that doesn't fit with their narrative. Right. I don't know. I'm speaking generally, but that's what I've noticed anyway.
That is interesting. So tell me about your tell me about your journalistic style. How do you? So you're here hanging out with me today. Like we said at the beginning of the podcast, I've been showing you around the town.
Yeah.
Took you to the record store and went and hung out with Tom and got some lunch and stuff. How do you see this piece that you're going to pitch about the punk rock mayor and all that sort of stuff? How are we? Because I said something to you earlier about gonzo journalism. Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes I say it and I think I don't really fully know what that is. I just think of Hunter S. Thompson of like, you know, we were in there with the Hells Angels and cocaine was flowing. And this girl said, "Do you want to come with me?" And I said, "Hey, fuck no." And then it's kind of there's a realness to it. But just tell me what your style is.
Well, do you know what? It's not too different to that, I guess. Right. You know, I wouldn't claim to be a proper gonzo journalist, but it's more. I'm not weirdly. I'm a writer, and I do make documentaries, but writing isn't my passion. I've never dreamed of writing books one day. I'm more like I want to go and live and meet people and kind of put myself in their shoes. And then write about it afterwards. You know, communicate my experience, tell a story. Like I'm a storyteller, I guess.
Right.
So for that Stonehenge piece, for example, I went and spent like a day with people that are camping out on the route of the road at a Stonehenge protest camp, and like, you know, I sat with them and I learned how they live, and I saw where they eat, and they showed me the tents that they lived in that were made out of like tarpaulin and hay bales and stuff, and I was like, okay, cool. It's better than. For me, that's way better than looking at something online and then casting a judgment. That's why I wanted to come and see you today, to see Froome and to meet you and to see, you know, I guess walk in your footsteps a little bit.
Right.
And so I guess it is a bit gonzo. And Hunter S. Thompson did it really well. And you kind of to gain trust and to make an intimate piece, which I always try and aim to do. That's fair and reflective of the people that I hang out with. You have to get quite close to them,
right? And
luckily, I'm quite. People seem to like me, or you know, if they don't, they don't. But you know, I seem to get on with a lot of different kinds of people.
You're very personable.
Thank you very much.
It's like that scene in the I think it's the Beatles' Help when they're in the I think it's John Lennon and Ringo in the lift, and Ringo says something to John, and John goes, "Well, you're very polite, aren't you?"
There you go. That's what I'm riding on.
He's like, "Oh, thanks."
And so I've gone to protest camps, and I've stayed there, slept in teepees with people, and done that kind of thing, because you kind of think you have to draw a line where you're like, you don't want to get so close to it. It's just a fluff piece when you're like, oh, I like this person, so I'm just gonna, you know, blow smoke up their ass and go too far that way. But also you're like, you know, you don't know what people are really like, or how they really live, or what their beliefs are, and until you get face to face and you're chatting to them like we are now, or you go and sleep on the floor in their teepee, you know, in rural Wales, you know, you don't know, you don't really. I think it's a very good way to get to know people, and also I'm compassionate. I love people, man. Like it seems weird, but I want people to understand each other better, and if I can be a vehicle. One of many, because there are many amazing journalists and filmmakers and musicians and everyone that communicate this. But if I can be a bit of a bridge between two very different types of people, or people that don't understand each other, then I'm happy, man. That is great. Like I lead with compassion first. That is it. That's my driving force.
And when you were saying you want to get there and get in their shoes and be around them, I started thinking about Louis Theroux. I mean, that's a different kind of journalism again, isn't it?
Yeah.
But he's very willing, and I think to a degree Louis Theroux is a bit of a construct, but not that I dislike him.
Yeah, I like him.
But I think he knows what he's doing. He's very smart. He knows what he's doing. How much of what you do is so informed by the first-hand experience? Like, have you seen pieces that you've written about things that you've talked to people about over the phone, and then seen the one that you've written about something similar where you've actually been there and done it, and you see that the depth and the. I suppose it maybe allows you to because how are you supposed to convey the message or the experience or the plight or the you know, whatever, if you haven't experienced it. Right.
Yeah, no, I know what you're getting at. It's difficult because sometimes you're also against the clock. Like, you know, you have a deadline. So I was writing about a religious group, another religious group, and they, in London, and they were. I spent a bit of time with them, but I had a deadline, and I'd see them at the weekend a bit, and then I kind of wrote what I could get to know about them in like 4 weeks, which isn't very much unless you spend a lot of time with them. I'd see them like once a week, and I interviewed them, and then they kind of let me in a little bit, and then I actually wanted to learn more about their beliefs after the article went out. So this is just on my own back.
Right.
So I visited them a long time often for like 2 years, just to learn more about them. And I thought, wow, if I'd have written that piece after knowing them for this long, it would be quite different.
Right.
But I guess it was like first impressions. It's it's different. I can tell the difference between my writing when I'm like, I spoke to that person on the phone, I know fuck all about them, we spoke about the subject in hand.
Yeah.
Whereas getting to know them, and also just as like you can learn to like someone, you can see the positives in someone that you have a negative opinion of in your head, or you think that they might be a bit of a crook or whatever. Same can happen the other way around. When you're like, oh, this person's a good person, then you get to know them, you're like, actually they're a bit flawed in their philosophy's a bit flawed or whatever, or maybe they're a bit more judgmental than I was expecting. Yeah. And that's valid as well, because it's kind of my duty to be fair, and fair means honest. And that doesn't mean I admit if someone's a bit of a dickhead or a bit of a, well, do you know what, actually, sometimes I do. Do you know what? Sometimes in the past I've thought, you've made me think there, I've thought, do I keep that part in this story? Is it important to the story? So for example, I did a piece about Television X, the porno channel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, on Sky.
No, I don't know anything about it.
You never heard of it? No.
What is that?
Yeah. Me neither. That's why I wanted to investigate it. So it was more about the history of Television X.
10-minute previews, mate. That's all I know.
So it was kind of the history of Television X, but they were doing a Christmas single.
Christmas single?
Yeah, it's bonkers. It was called Coming for Christmas. It was. We'll have to go. Pull that shit up, Jamie. We'll have to get it up. You have to listen to it, man. It's so funny. And it was like porn stars that were singing Coming for Christmas. And I was hanging out with them for a day as they were shooting the video and doing like softcore porn stuff. And then Ben Dover, famous British porn star, interesting guy.
Right, I bet.
Yeah, and he was like an older dude who'd been in it for years. He was like in porn when they were like swapping VHS when it was illegal. Like when porn was illegal in the UK.
He's prohibition porn star.
Yeah. Because I used to go to the Ace Cafe in London and sell tapes of me having sex with women like out of a briefcase. I was like, fucking hell. So like all these bikers.
Come in the toilet. Yeah. Come in the toilet.
Do you want to see me have sex with someone?
Here we go.
Do I? Do I ever?
Here we go, boys.
Yeah, so he used to do that. So he was like an old school guy, and then I spoke to him, and he plays in Guns N' Roses, a Guns N' Roses tribute band. So I could have written a whole thing about him. He was an interesting dude.
I want to get him on the pod. Can you?
I can hook you up, man.
All right.
And
okay, cool.
and then he went into some really anti-immigration. Like really,
I don't want him on the pod.
Yeah, he went into some really anti-immigration Brexit rant with me for ages in the thing as my recorder was, as my dictaphone was recording, and he was talking about you see him everywhere nowadays, and I was kind of shite, and I was like,
fuck that guy.
Okay, and then I thought he talked about it so much, but I thought not to protect his reputation, but I thought. I didn't see the worth
from the story.
I didn't really see the worth in putting that in.
Right.
Because I thought we're talking about the history of porn in the UK and Television X and this Christmas single. And he talked a lot about how much he thought Brexit was a great idea or whatever it was. This is before Brexit had happened.
Right.
Before it was even voted on.
Right. Before it was a conversation.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So he was like, he was early on Nigel Farage kind of head. This from my memory anyway. Yeah. And I made the choice to not put it in, and now I'm second guessing it. But I thought, well, what does that add to the story? Right. It might make you dislike this guy, think he's a dick. Or it might make you like him more if you agree with that sentiment. But I did think, what's the worth in what's the worth of that? So I guess I do omit things that perhaps other people would think are important to a story. Yeah, I don't know. Is that important to the story?
It's an interesting detail. But I think that possibly there's a part of you now that's worrying if you're being covering up for him or something. But you're not.
Protecting his reputation,
At
perhaps.
the end of the day, it's a washed-up old porn star banging on about xenophobic right-wing politics. It's like, how interesting is that to the story when you've got...
Bend Over's totally gone down in my expectations.
Right? Like, where did he start? You know
well, do you know what?
So,
It was interesting for someone who's so, I guess, in some respects, liberal. He was really campaigning, going to court for trying to campaign to get people's right to have sex on camera and make that legal. You know what I mean? That's quite like a not very conservative standpoint. And for him to then come out with some very, I would say, quite conservative views of like old English values.
Yeah.
I was thinking, isn't that funny? You were talking to me a minute ago about how bonkers it was that you couldn't have sex on camera. And now you're saying, oh, bloody hell, the bloody taking our nationality or whatever. And I thought, I was a bit surprised, but again, I didn't think it was worth putting in.
Yeah, well, it depends what you're there to do. You have to ask yourself, am I there to promote this coming for Christmas, absurd Christmas single? It's a PR stunt, really, isn't it?
No. It's a banger.
You think to yourself, like, what are you here for? Are you there to expose Bend Over, right? Or
if that is his real name.
If it's even your name. Or are you there to do what you're there to do, right?
Yes.
And it's just, I don't know, the way I'm seeing that in my head is that you're the journalist there and he's some old has-been porn star and he's just chewing your ear off about shit.
What? Yeah, exactly.
And you're just like, cool, man.
Yeah, cool, man. That's not what I'm here for.
So that's not a story in my eyes. It's interesting. It's an interesting part of this podcast, like the things that happen to you on the peripheral while you're in these little situations. But I'd stand by your decision. I'd say to stay focused.
Have you had anyone on the podcast when you thought, oh, you've said something that I really disagree with there, or that you've really surprised me, and I wasn't. I don't know how. I wasn't expecting that, and then you thought, do I keep that in or do I leave it?
That's a really interesting question. Yeah, I can't. Harry, what do you think? Have we had that? You got your mic, haven't you?
I've said it.
Oh.
So, with Badger, you need to do a bit of self-preservation for yourself because he knew you was a teenager.
Oh, old stories.
Yeah, so maybe there's some bits and pieces of things that we've cut out from people that have known me for a long time where I'm like, you know what, we're going to keep that out. But I've never had anything, not that I'd get cancelled, it's just kind of like, I was young. But I've never had a moment where I've sat here with someone and suddenly they've dropped something and I've gone, here we go.
Bend over.
They're a dickhead. Do you know what I mean? I've never had that where I'm like, oh, fucking hell, here we go.
But then perhaps you wouldn't, because if you're open-minded, as we hope to be as journalists, but I would say you're a journalist too, doing this podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Then you're like, oh, okay, they believe something that I don't believe. It doesn't necessarily mean that, you cancelled, you're a dickhead. You're like, okay, you believe that.
Yeah, no one said anything where I'm like, you're an awful human being for thinking this. No one said anything racist or...
It's more interesting to find out where that's coming from anyway.
Yeah.
Or like to be like, to show people as they really are.
Yeah.
As well, like people are not perfect. I think that's a problem with a lot of kind of maybe celebrity culture or idolatry, when people really look up to people, or they have the admirations at famous people and they do something that they don't really agree with, and you're like, people are people.
Yeah.
It's not I don't think it's very helpful to believe someone's totally evil or totally perfect and good. Like, people are just not that. They're a mix between the two.
Yeah.
They're a bit of both, or they're somewhere in the middle. Like, it's too reductive and simplistic to be like, oh my God, I love this singer from this band, and oh my, I worship the ground that he works on, and I probably agree with everything that he believes and everything he says.
Yeah.
It's like, be realistic.
Yeah.
You don't agree with everything your mate thinks, let alone this fucking random person you'd never met.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So sometimes when I do think, and the same as like, oh my God, this guy's a monster. He's a people say it all the time, they're a monster, or they're beyond help and things like that. You're like, who does that help? Who does that really help? It's like, it's actually way more truthful to go, there's a bit of this monster in you as well, actually, because we're all humans, right? We all come from the same place.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of that serial killer in you, Andy. There's a bit of that serial killer in me.
Yeah.
Because we're all part of the same
Which serial
species.
killer? That's important.
I don't know, Ed Gein. Do you have to pick one?
Oh, nasty. I like it.
But I think that's hard to comprehend.
Right.
But it's actually quite healthy, I would say, to be like, there's a bit of there's a bit of Bob Dylan in you and me as well. It depends. Who's your favourite singer? There's a bit of.
Oh God, big question. Chris Stapleton, he's great. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's good. He is good.
Yeah.
There's a bit of Chris Stapleton in you and me. And there's also a little bit of Ed
we started
Gein.
singing then. And a little bit of Ed Gein. Can you imagine that as the Christmas single?
Bit of a mix, yeah.
Chris Stapleton featuring Ed Gein. I got a brand new
I'd
apron.
buy it.
Santa, bring me a new apron. Oh God. Right. So where are we going to go from there? Yeah, I think you're right. People are colourful, nuanced, complex things, and I can't remember who said it, but I read a quote at some point saying that we're living in a puritanical age, and I'm getting a bit sick of cancel culture, I tell you, and I think there are parts of it where you want to spread awareness and you want to make a stand for things, that's great, but sometimes it gets ridiculous. Like if I adhere to cancel culture and everything that it stands for, I need to throw away probably all 2,000 of my CDs. I need to throw my
Waco one.
Yeah, I need to throw away my record collection.
Yeah. Well, do you know what I mean? Yeah, and I don't really want to talk about cancel culture too much, to be honest. But I think who cancels? Who cancels who?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not cancelled. What? People go to your gigs, you're not cancelled. If people buy your CDs, you're not cancelled. Who cancelled you? People on Twitter that you'd never met. Yeah. Nice one. You know what I mean? It gets serious when people get dropped from their record labels. But if people don't like something you've said on Twitter, or if people are very sensitive or very different to you and they cancel you in inverted commas, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, you're not dead. You know what I mean? You're not in jail. Well, it's just like they've been cancelled.
Yeah.
Have they? Not by me.
It's the new.
It's like you decide, right?
Yeah,
we have our own minds. You know that, right?
There comes a bit of social pressure with some of it, though, isn't it? It's like, you still following dickhead over there? It's like, must make you a dickhead.
Still following Bend Over, are you? Don't you know you got cancelled long ago?
Did you not see that rant? It's
tricky. It's and things like serious things I take very seriously.
Yeah.
Less serious things I take less seriously. But I guess that's a spectrum that only a personal spectrum that I have.
Yeah.
Things that I think are things that I don't think are okay, like someone being a paedophile. Like I think Michael Jackson was a paedophile.
Oh, you do?
So I don't listen to his music.
Right.
I don't think that's okay. But I think someone saying something stupid on Twitter, I might still listen to the music.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, there's a nuance. There's a nuance.
And that's my own
nuance
scale that I've made up.
Tell me about Waco.
Yeah, so we're a rock band, and I love our music. I am our biggest fan, and
and your mum.
Oh, my mum loves us. Yeah. So Hope Rituals, we released it last year. It's great. It's kind of like punk rock, a bit of 70s rock influence. And it's kind of, I think we're really coming into our own. We've been going for like 7 years, and
7 is an interesting number. I saw an interview with Dave Grohl where he said 7. If you look in the history of bands, year 7 is where they either break up or they stay together for decades after.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's something about 7.
Interesting.
And I don't know, and I'm wondering what it is. I think he tried to explain it, and I think it was like Lars Ulrich maybe on Apple or something like that. But it was like, you've got the first few years when you're trying to figure it all out and you're fresh and you're green, and then you've got like 3 or 4 years when you're just getting it together, and then 7 is where you've done enough, you've grown enough that maybe you're just, I don't know what it is. There's something about 7 where you're sick of it or you're in.
There's a bit of both for me at the moment.
Right.
I'm joking. I hope we stay together. It's great fun. We released our album, a new album last year, Hope Rituals, and I mean, you might like it. It's optimistic. It's we've been through a lot of shit, like stuff that you'd never wish on your worst enemy. Like our bassist passed away a couple of years ago, and it was just
I did hear about that.
It was just like the worst thing that could ever happen to anyone. He was so close to us, and to still remain as a band afterwards, or really kind of carry on his legacy, in such a way, kind of is a bit of a a driving force in a weird way. It's almost like he started this band, he built this with us, Chris, and to not carry it on seems like a disservice to everything that he put into it, and to carry on his legacy and to also heal ourselves and as a form of grieving. It's been the best thing for us. Like I think, man, it's been cathartic, and it I love us. We are playing. We're going to do some gigs in September onwards. We're playing London, Brighton, up north. Where are we playing down here? We're playing. I don't think we're playing in the West Country. This is the West Country, isn't it?
Criminal.
We played in Bridgewater before,
Country, yeah.
but we will be down here soon. But anyway, we're playing all over the country. Waco. WACO. I'm a walking billboard, a walking sandwich board for us. I love us. Of course, I love us. I'm not.
You got to be proud of it.
Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. Like I'm not some coy like, well, you were all right. No, we rock.
Yeah.
I love it. We're not the best band in the world, but I enjoy our music.
I remember once.
I enjoy your music.
Hey, well, I was going to say, when you say a walking billboard, I came to greet you earlier. I was like, Jesus Christ, I haven't seen one of those T-shirts in so long. So there's a short print run on that one.
I love it, man.
It's a great one.
Where'd you get the artwork from?
That is Sophie. I'm gonna have to try and remember her name. Sophie something illustration on Instagram.
I'll find it because I really like the illustration.
Fantastic.
It reminds me a bit of like cave paintings.
Yeah, it's kind of got that kind of tribal, Aboriginal. I guess.
It has got Aboriginal art. It has got that flavour, definitely.
Yeah, she
and that's
does
what
amazing
I like about
stuff. Sophie, I want to say Sophie Bass.
I don't just buy band T-shirts, willy nilly.
Don't.
I specifically got this because I like the band and I love the artwork as well.
Nice. Well, I love it. Like when you say you'll tell people like, yeah, we're good, we rock. Like, I'm a bit like that. And Ben, our old singer, used to say to me, Andy, you have the most unashamed ego of anyone I've ever met. Because I'd be like, yeah, this is the greatest song ever written. Yeah. And like, he'd think I meant it. I didn't really. but like, it's just, we'd have a bit of fun with it. I remember once I started this job, it was like labouring or something. And I was in the van with some of the lads, and you're the new kid and you're a bit green, and they want to sort of like question you a bit and maybe like have a bit of bounce, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the dudes turned to me and was like, so you a good drummer then? And I was like, yeah, I'm really good. And he was like,
oh right.
I was like, I am.
Yeah, of course.
He's like, oh.
Yeah, mate, I'm all for that. Be proud of it.
Lying.
Be proud of it.
I ain't lying. I'm good.
Of course we're not. Of course we're not. We're not the best band in the world. But come on, it's fine to be proud of what you've done, and that's not runaway ego. That's just being realistic, and bigging yourself up. People are so ready to tear yourself down. It's easy to criticize.
Yeah.
But it's not easy to create. So stop criticizing and create. And that's for yourself and for other people. We criticize ourselves, we put each other down. No put downs of self or others. Stop criticizing and create. Do it. It takes balls, it takes strength to create stuff. So go and do it. And if no one is your fan, then you be your biggest fan. That's what I do.
I love it. We'll end it on this one. You will never be criticized by anyone doing more than you.
Boom.
Boom.
I love it, man.
Nice one. Thank you, Jack. That was great.
Nice one, Andy. Cheers for having me.